name is Nicholas Ocampo, and today for my informative speech, I will be talking about HIV and AIDS in the African American community in South Carolina. There is a silent war that this country has been fighting against HIV and AIDS since its discovery by American scientists in the early 1980s. According to a report by the CDC, 1.1 million people are living in the U.S. with HIV, and 1 in 7 of them don't even know that they have it. This is a very dangerous disease, and it can even cause death if not treated properly. In 2014, 6,721 people died directly from the HIV virus. African Americans represent 12% of the U.S. population, but account for 45% of HIV diagnosis. They unfortunately have the largest rate of HIV diagnosis compared to other races and ethnicities. African American gay and bisexual men accounted for the largest number of HIV diagnoses in 2015. Also in 2015, South Carolina ranked 17th place for HIV cases out of all the 50 states in the U.S. Poverty, lack of health care, and social inequality are some factors that contribute to the high HIV cases in South Carolina. Because South Carolina has a lot of socio-economic problems, it is harder to contain and fight this disease. Many African Americans living in South Carolina are simply just unaware of how bad this epidemic really is. It may be because they might not be educated on the causes, symptoms, or how this disease spreads. First, human immunodeficiency virus, better known as HIV, is a virus that attacks the immune system by destroying CD4 cells, which is a type of white blood cells used to fight infections out of our body. The most common way to get HIV is to have unprotected sex, or you can also get it by sharing needles, or if a mother passes it down to a child giving birth. When left untreated, HIV progresses to its final and deadliest stage, which is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or AIDS. Some symptoms of HIV include fever, chills, rashes, fatigue, and sore throat. There is currently no cure for HIV and AIDS, but it can be controlled by various medications that help you live a long life with the virus. Secondly, poverty and other economic problems African Americans in South Carolina face play a major role in how the epidemic affects the community. 26.4% of African Americans in South Carolina live in poverty, while a lot do not have access to quality health care because they simply cannot afford it. Many African Americans live in single-parent homes where the working parent is making close to, if not minimum wage. The rate of black students dropping out of high school is also higher than their Caucasian counterparts. Due to South Carolina denying expansion under Medicaid, most African Americans, by the majority who live in poverty, cannot afford the medicine. According to a report done by the CDC, a lifetime cost of treating HIV is $379,000. The cost of medicine is way too expensive, especially to someone who might not have quality health insurance. Third, there's also a lot of stigma in the community, which makes it harder to combat the disease. Being that South Carolina is on the Bible Belt, many people may be afraid because they might feel like they are being punished, especially gay and bisexual black men, which is the highest risk group for getting the virus. Many people may be afraid to tell someone because they might be afraid that they might be judged by the family or peers. My fourth and last point is the lack of response from the African American community on this disease. In order to combat and decrease the increasing number of diagnoses for this disease, it must first be talked about. Many African Americans don't talk about this disease, even though the chance of dying from the virus is high due to expenses in Medicare and healthcare. The HIV/AIDS virus is an ongoing epidemic and it needs to be taken care of, or people will continue to die and the rate of diagnosis will continue to rise. The future of this epidemic looks unstable as the new president of the United States, President Trump, says he will cut all states in the U.S.'s healthcare plan. If he does this, the number of people with no health insurance will rise, and more people will not be able to afford HIV and AIDS treatment. It is time for the African American community to step up and educate themselves on this disease so that we can end this epidemic that has been plaguing our state for decades. Thank you. And here are my resources. And are there any questions?